Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of What If Civilization Started Over. We're going to get right into it. As you can see, there's a lot of new ideologies, so if you missed the last episode, definitely go watch that. But yeah, we're going to get right into it. I just wanted to point out that all of the monarchies that are remaining are very strongly pariah states, with the only exception being Spain, who basically betrayed the ideology of monarchy in favor of theocracies in order to get rid of Galicia in the last episode. But every other monarchy is very much a pariah state that all the other states would love to see gone. And we're going to see that at the start of this episode, as pretty quickly after the war ends, this war, once the peace treaty expires, which is 50 years later, so actually not that quickly, but like relatively quickly for this series, East India, North India, and Pakistan will all declare war on West India to just try and get rid of them. And East India does the bulk of the work, with West India, or with Pakistan, pretty much just taking the capital and then chilling, and North India just taking these two cities and then chilling, which kind of frustrates East India, but whatever. But we're going to start to see that maybe theocracy isn't as good of a movement as people thought it was, because pretty immediately, Burma and China are going to work together. This is not supposed to be a capital anymore. But they are basically going to take advantage of East India's distraction and just sort of seize this colony. They are the same religion, so they are able to work together. But you'll notice that last episodes where different religious theocracies were able to work together, that's not going to be the case anymore now that everyone's a theocracy. These guys are going to first take the land, and then they're going to change their borders with each other to make it look nicer because I say so. And China did this because they really wanted this city back, I guess. Anyway, yeah, they have just completely divided up these guys, and China then uses this opportunity to explore down the Malay Peninsula until they find the southern tip of it, and they colonize the entire rest of it. We haven't done actually that in a few episodes, so yeah. We're going to continue with the exploration idea. Anyway, despite that hiccup, West India is fully toppled, and they are deleted as a state. Most of their land goes over to East India because they did most of the work, but Pakistan and North India also get some territory, with North India getting North India now has a ridiculous amount of population over here, which is fun. And what's also fun is that this no longer exists. This pocket of land actually does, because North India is way more tolerant of other religions since they voluntarily converted to theocracy. But East India is one of the least tolerant theocracies in the world, so they don't tolerate the orange religion. And that is going to drastically anger these guys. And essentially, the green religion and the orange religion are like pretty much permanent enemies after that. What was essentially a massacre of orange religion people. And basically in retaliation, these guys are going to massacre some people within their borders, and China's always been more tolerant, so they're not going to like fully massacre people within their borders, but they are going to put in place a series of policies that kind of encourages you to join their religion, and if you don't, then you have to pay like ridiculous taxes and stuff. So definitely is not nearly anything as bad as what Burma did, but it does lead to this. The Yellow River Valley is a theocracy, and they're a new government, but they still kind of have like an independent identity from Yangtze, who really wants them to be a puppet, but they're not a puppet. And they kind of want to rebuild their strength, even though they're a different government now. And so they start, and actually they're cooperating with Korea to do this. They start an exploration of Manchuria as well as like the Russian Far East, and they explore all of this land, and they make like a treaty dividing it up between them, which would look something like, and Korea will go ahead and discover the entire rest of Japan, as well as colonizing it, as well as the southern half of Sakhalin. And we're going to see some cities popping up all over the place. I feel like I spent so much time on East Asia in the last two episodes, so I'm going to go away from them. Let's just put some cities in the new like areas. So yeah. Let's go to Persia, because they have basically despite being a secular monarchy, they are actually still friendly with basically the country that rebelled with them, which is Central Asia. And the reason for is because they are the same religion. If you'll notice, Oman is this dark green religion, and they are ruling over a lot of people with this light green religion. And basically, Central Asia offers to help Persia kick Oman out of their territory. They also want to do it with all of these guys, but for now, it's Oman that they're attacking. And they start invading into Omani territory to try and take it back. But Oman will call for help from Mesopotamia, who will answer the call, and they will start invading into both of these countries. And Mesopotamia is still really strong. Definitely no longer the strongest in the world, but still really strong. And so they are able to do this before Central Asia is able to start stopping them. And both sides are now asking Pakistan for help. It started with Central Asia asking Pakistan, but now Mesopotamia is also asking Pakistan, and Pakistan is a third sect of the green religion. So they're not actually sure, but because the light green sect is closer to the lime green sect than the dark green sect is, Pakistan eventually agrees to help out Persia and Central Asia. And with that, Mesopotamia starts getting pushed back because Pakistan is quite strong now. They used to be pretty weak, but now they're quite strong. And within a few months, Mesopotamia is now being the one being invaded into, as Oman has fully lost all of their territory. And Mesopotamia agrees to stop the war if they can keep all their territory. These guys are like, hey, just give us a little bit of territory, and they're winning, so Mesopotamia's like, fine. And Persia actually didn't get any territory from Mesopotamia because they got their territory back from Oman. But as you can see, despite the fact that they also buy some territory from North Arabia because they looked ugly as heck. Also, North Arabia they're not nearly as bad as like East India, but they are slowly starting to persecute people. Besides, this religion is actually legal in their territory because it only exists within Arabia. And yeah, so that religion is actually legal, but they definitely are persecuting people of the other religions. They haven't quite gotten around to getting rid of everyone within their borders who isn't their religion, but yeah, Mesopotamia is really mad at them for this, and you're going to see this as a common theme where theocracies are going to try and make themselves only one religion, but then theocracies of the religions they're eradicating are going to be mad about it. Let's go to Europe now. Russia, as like the only actual powerful monarchy that didn't betray the concept of monarchy, is going to basically plan to get rid of theocracies eventually. But for now, they are simply exploring, like so. And they actually become pretty close with Central Asia because Central Asia has shown itself to be a friend of monarchies, despite Russia being the yellow religion, and I'll spread the religion at the end of the episode. Anyway, Albania is going to try and take some of this land. Serbia is also going to take some of this land. And Croatia is going to do some of their own exploration into Northern Europe and take some of this land as well for themselves. And Russia will actually be bordering Croatia by the end of this, which is always fun because they're the same religion, but one's a monarchy and one's a theocracy. And obviously, with all this exploration, new cities are definitely going to start forming. But Russia is on their quest to get rid of basically to become the most powerful country in the world, and they're definitely doing decently well at that. France will continue exploring up the British Isles. They don't really explore over here. Like maybe they explore a little bit into Germany, but not too much, and they don't colonize anything there, except that they do this because it looks ugly. No, they're mostly focused on the British Isles for whatever reason, and so they explore all throughout England as well as Ireland, and they colonize. When I said England, I meant Great Britain. Sorry. They colonize all of it, but actually no new cities are going to pop up because the English people just aren't really happy being part of a theocracy, so only 2 cities will pop up in all of the British Isles. And generally, France is really struggling to subjugate their population. Even though it's all the same religion, they just don't like being a theocracy, basically. Anyway, Carthage, at this point, it makes sense for, like, the Canaries to be explored by someone, as well as, like, the Azores. And basically, Spain, actually, no. Carthage is going to colonize the Canaries, and then they're going to have a ship that gets lost and eventually colonizes Cape Verde. And this ship is trying to get back to Carthage, but they don't realize how far away they are. And they end up being here and discovering this part of West Africa. And it's actually just going to be a new country. It's not going to be Carthaginian. But yeah, they're going to basically be forced to found a new country. And they only have one major city for now because that's the size of the exploration group that was there. Actually, no, they have two. One of them is in Cape Verde and one of them is in the mainland. And actually, their capital is going to be in Cape Verde. So I'm going to call them Cape Verde. And I have to make them an ideology. And I'm going to keep the ideologies later on for now. Simply because... Actually, I'm going to turn it off. I feel like it doesn't need to be on. But they are actually going to be a monarchy because they don't need to be a theocracy. But they are going to be the blue religion. So yeah, this is an interesting thing that'll become more important later on. Also, Spain colonizes the Azores. Mesopotamia is just going to decide to start cracking down on their religious majority, which is the yellow religion. And they also start cracking down on these guys. But yeah, it's actually really quick how the entirety of Mesopotamia converts to the main religion of Mesopotamia. But Egypt, as well as Turkey, who are yellow religion theocracies, as well as Russia, who's yellow religion monarchy, they don't really like that Mesopotamia did that. And so they are going to all declare war on Mesopotamia. And let's see how this goes for Mesopotamia. But yeah, it's going to start with Russia invading first. Turkey will then do an invasion into Mesopotamia. And Egypt will start their own invasion. You can turn off ideologies. And Egypt is actually the most successful out of any of them, but Mesopotamia is really not doing well. They literally just lost the war to these guys. So they're not doing well, and the entirety of Anatolia gets cut off. And these guys then basically rebel and decide to join Turkey, as they all convert back to the yellow religion because they were never really the green religion. And at this point, even though they don't really want to help the yellow religion out, they realize that it's best for them. So Arabia will start their own invasion. Arabia will start their own invasion into Mesopotamia, and Persia will do the same. Central Asia actually stays silent, basically. But once the capital of Mesopotamia is captured, they will surrender to all invading powers. So let's see what the peace treaty looks like. Okay, so this is what it looks like after the peace treaty. So Mesopotamia got crippled. Something does happen to the invaders pretty much right afterwards, which is that basically a split is going to happen in the yellow religion. Basically, the split is centered in this country, which is majority red religion and is a red religion theocracy. But the yellow religion regions are going to basically become their own religion, and this is a movement that starts spreading into Egypt. And Egypt is obviously the main sect of the yellow religion, so they don't really like this. And they try to, like, basically make it this new sect of the religion is considered the same as being any other religion that isn't the yellow religion. Obviously, Egypt also has a huge amount of land that's now the green religion. Anyway, so this is going to be a movement that will basically turn into a rebellion. There used to be a country called South Egypt. Well, they still have their own identity, and they decide to rebel at this time from North Egypt. And it's roughly in the same region. And this happens right after this peace treaty is signed. These guys were waiting for the peace treaty to be signed because they didn't want Mesopotamia to win that war. I guess patriotism, I guess. Anyway, yeah, let's see what happens. So, South Egypt obviously doesn't want these guys to exist. Sudan doesn't want South Egypt to exist, and North Egypt doesn't want any of these guys to exist. But Sudan is going to start trying to round up the rebels, and they have help from Eritrea and Ethiopia. And they're doing decently well at this, with kind of South Egypt is kind of helping because they're also trying to get rid of the rebels. But North Egypt is one of the most powerful states in the world. And so they are basically invading into both of these powers. And like this new religion movement seems to not be doing well, but they do have a benefit, which is that they are a religion. So wherever the religion spreads, which it is spreading relatively quickly, especially when they can kind of forcibly convert people. And so the South Egypt movement is starting to do badly, but also these guys start losing their core territory, and they've lost every city in their core territory besides this one now. And they kind of start withdrawing as people weren't actually that religion. They were kind of just slaughtered if they weren't. But also South Egypt is starting to push back against North Egypt, and that is because yet another new movement has popped up, and this is basically the Green Religion trying to rebel from Egypt. They want to join up with Mesopotamia, but Mesopotamia isn't allowed to take them because everyone threatens Mesopotamia. So these guys are just on their own. Turkey will seize Cyprus despite having just been in an alliance with Egypt. And at this point, Egypt is really not doing well. They fully withdraw from South Egypt. But South Egypt has kind of fully quelled this pocket of rebellion. And Sudan and South Egypt sign a treaty with each other despite being different religions. That basically says they will just work on getting rid of the new religion, and then they will sign peace. And so I'm going to spare you the details, but eventually that works out. As Sudan reclaims all of its former territory, as well as I think actually more. No, it's just all of its former territory. And South Egypt gains its independence. However, North Egypt is still rebelling, and South Egypt actually starts to help out North Egypt because they really don't want to actually take North Egyptian territory. And with that help, they're starting to push these guys back. And no one really wants this country to exist, but no one's willing to do anything about it besides South Egypt. And just to make things worse, Libya will start their own invasion into both North and South Egypt. However, they kind of just sign a peace treaty that gives them some new land, instead of maybe going for the maximum they could have gotten. Which is, by the way, recognized South Egypt in exchange for their help against these guys. But eventually, a stalemate is reached, and that eventually leads to a ceasefire that eventually leads to peace. And this is what the lines look like. So these guys' capital will be here. South Egypt's capital will be here. Religion-wise, the new religion is actually starting to spread despite having lost. In fact, that's probably why it's spreading. Okay, and then this is the ideologies of the new states. So these guys are a monarchy, and these guys are a theocracy of the dark green religion. Okay, and then one last thing before this episode ends. Central Asia and Russia will cooperate to explore a bit more of Siberia, like so, and then they will make a peace treaty dividing up the land between them in a way that looks a little like this. No one's really living here yet, but they do that. And with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.